I'd taken 9 years of condescension from my in-laws. My wife didn't defend. I left dinner, filed for divorce and kept my $20 million business. They lost all. As soon as I took out my phone, the whole table ceased to chuckle. After making fun of me for the last 25 minutes, Hazel's new girlfriend abruptly stopped talking to me. My father-in-law, who had just warned me to quit disparaging his family, was gaping at my screen. Halfway toward her wine glass, my wife Riley's hand froze. Additionally, my brother-in-law Hudson, who had been supporting his girlfriend's attacks throughout the evening, appeared to have just consumed something terrible. John Williams is my name. My age is 38. I also believed that I had married into a respectable family until that Sunday supper at my in-laws' house. I had been married for 6 years and with Riley for 9, and throughout that time I had gone to great lengths to blend in with the Parker family. They were wealthy blue bloods from Connecticut who would never let you forget that they were from a better place than the one you crawled out of. My mom worked as a clerk at Stop and Shop, while my dad drove trucks in a working-class section of Hartford. But I had constructed something. At 30, I launched my own logistics consulting business. By 33, it had grown into a multi-million-dollar business with 50 employees spread across 3 offices. Although the Parkers were aware of this, they never admitted it. They still saw me as the lucky kid from the wrong side of town. The dinner began rather routinely. Like every other Sunday, Riley and I got to her parents' house in Westport at 6 o'clock. It was a vast colonial that resembled something from a magazine spread. James Parker, her father, had a series of auto stores throughout Connecticut. Margaret, her mother, spent her days organizing fundraising galas and serving on charitable boards. Riley's younger brother, Hudson, was there when we got there. He was 29, had a new girlfriend every few months, and worked in sales at one of his father's dealerships. Margaret introduced us as we entered the dining area and said that this time he had brought Chloe Walker, a 26-year-old marketing professional. Chloe had the polished beauty that some women work for hours to get. A luxury dress that probably costs more than most people's monthly rent, flawlessly straightened blonde hair, and the confidence that comes from never being turned down in your life. Margaret whispered, "John," as we sat down. "You know, Ashton and Pierce is the downtown marketing agency where Chloe works." I gave a courteous nod. "Chloe, nice to meet you." Her eyes did not meet her smile. Hudson has also told me a great deal about his family. The typical Parker family chatter filled the first 25 minutes of dinner. James discussed the dealership's sales figures. Margaret talked about the charity auction that she was planning. Hudson boasted about a significant sale he had closed that week. Riley discussed her career as an interior decorator. I was not questioned about my business. That was typical. Unless you were doing anything for them, the Parkers had a way of making you feel like you weren't quite worthy of their attention. Then Chloe began. "So John," she replied, carefully slicing into her salmon. "Riley said you have a consultancy business of some sort." I replied, "I do. Consulting for logistics. We assist businesses in streamlining their distribution networks and supply chains." She gave me a slow nod as if I had just told her that I made a life by collecting bottle caps. "That sounds intriguing. Like you give directions to truck drivers?" Hudson chuckled. Riley gave me a pitying glance but remained silent. "Not exactly," I said calmly. "It's a highly difficult task that involves data analysis, network modeling, and strategic planning. We examine complete logistical operations and create methods to save costs and increase efficiency." Chloe smirked a little as she took a sip of her wine. Right. My mistake. "So, you're like a middle manager, but for trucks?" James laughed. Behind her wine glass, Margaret grinned. Riley was examining her dish as if it held the universe's secrets. Whenever the Parkers chose to remind me that I wasn't truly one of them, I experienced the familiar tightening in my chest. But after 9 years, I'd come to accept it. It never worked to fight back, it only exacerbated the situation. I muttered something along those lines. And I made a mistake. Chloe saw weakness the instant I gave in. Please take a moment to subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the story and would like to hear more about defending yourself and managing family dynamics. Please share your personal experiences with challenging in-laws in the comments section below, and click like to help spread the word about these tales. Your assistance is crucial to the channel's expansion. Chloe went on. "Hudson tells me you grew up in Hartford," and her tone became predatory. "It must have been difficult. I mean, I've made several trips through that area. It's not the most pleasant place." I said it wasn't too horrible. "Strong community, good people." "Yes, of course." With false sympathy, Chloe said, "I take it that everyone is making the most of what they have? After all, not everyone can afford Hampton's summer homes and fancy schools. America is great because of that. People from diverse backgrounds can achieve success, you know." There was silence at the table. Even Hudson, who was still grinning, appeared a little uneasy. John has achieved great success for himself. Riley's voice was small when she finally spoke. Chloe happily answered, "Oh, absolutely. That's the American dream, after all, to move from that kind of background to owning your own small business. Amazing. Not much business." Like smoke, the words hung in the air. I surveyed the table. James was focused intently on his meal. Margaret was pouring more wine into her glass. Hudson tried not to chuckle. Riley let this stranger to disparage her spouse in her parents' house while she sat there in silence. "We should probably talk about something else," I muttered. "Why?" Chloe questioned, pretending to seem innocent. She wasn't even trying to be subtle when she said, "I think it's fascinating. I love hearing success stories from people who've overcome adversity. It's so inspiring." Every statement was designed to remind me that I was unworthy, that I didn't belong, and that I was fortunate to be seated at this table among individuals who were far superior to me. Hudson finally joined in, saying, "Chloe's right. John has made great progress. Dad, do you recall when we first met him? The vintage Honda he was driving had a dent in the door." James grinned. "Yes, I do recall that. John, what year was that car?" Continuing to run, I stated in 2000, 2001, and 2002. Sweetly, Chloe asked. "Years ago, I sold it." "That's nice, I see. I mean, you can afford to improve these things once you start earning actual money, actual cash." As if my 7-figure salary from the previous year wasn't genuine enough, Margaret made the decision to join in on the fun. "John has always handled money with extreme caution and pragmatism. That must be a result of growing up in poverty." My jaw tightened. 9 years of this, including backhanded compliments, subtle jabs, and being told that I should be thankful that they allowed me to wed their daughter. What do I think is so admirable? I knew that whatever followed next would be worse as Chloe went on. "Blue-collar workers are those who perform manual labor. John, you mean your dad drove a truck?" I clarified that he drives a truck. "He's still alive." "Correct. Apologies. Drives a truck. That work is really sincere. We need people who are willing to do those jobs, my father always says. Surely someone must?" Now Hudson was laughing aloud. Riley remained still silent despite the tears in her eyes. Margaret and James were enjoying the show as if it were a dinner theater performance. "Chloe," I said, maintaining a steady tone. "You seem insulting to me." "Disrespectful?" She appeared truly taken aback. "You have my compliment. I'm expressing my admiration for those who rise from poverty and achieve success. In what way is that disrespectful?" At last, James raised his voice. "I believe you're being a little too sensitive, John. Chloe is merely conversing. She is disparaging my heritage and family." Margaret calmly stated, "No one is insulting anybody. Everyone is finding this awkward because of you." I quietly begged Riley to say something to support me or at least recognize what was going on. However, she merely sat motionless. "Perhaps you should just unwind," Hudson said. "It didn't mean anything to Chloe. It's a bit dramatic of you." "I'm exaggerating." Anger rose sharply and hot in my chest. James answered confidently, "Yes. You're overreacting to small talk, which is hurting my family's reputation. You're making Chloe feel uncomfortable while she's a visitor at our house." I gazed at my father-in-law, who had treated me like hired work for 9 years, never inquired about my business, never recognized my accomplishments, and never showed me that I was valuable. He was now accusing me of harming his family's reputation. Finally, I responded, "I apologize. I didn't intend to cause discomfort to anyone." Chloe grinned broadly. "Don't worry. I completely get it. Regarding their backgrounds, people can get defensive at times. It's organic." The discussion continued. Chloe began discussing her career at Ashton & Pierce, the significant campaigns she was a part of, and the large clientele they served. Hudson listened intently to every word. Margaret posed inquisitive queries. James gave me a nod of approval, and I felt a change. I took my phone from beneath the table and began looking. Ashton & Pierce Marketing located their website, retrieved their list of clients, and looked through their most current press releases. After that, I looked up Chloe's name on LinkedIn and compared it to the company directory. I interrupted Chloe as she was telling a story about a campaign she had worked on. "What is the duration of your relationship with Ashton & Pierce?" She proudly stated that it had been about 8 months. "Although I began as a senior marketing associate, I am currently being evaluated for a position as an account manager." I said, "That's impressive. You mentioned working with their major clientele, right?" "Yes, I do. After all, I'm on the team that deals with them. The work is highly collaborative." "Specifically, whose clients?" She paused for a brief moment. Confidentiality agreements prevent me from disclosing client names, but believe me, they are well-known brands. Slowly, I nodded. Correct. Privacy. It makes sense. Why are you asking? Suddenly defensive, Hudson said. Since Chloe showed such interest in my work earlier, I was only curious about hers. Chloe's smile had become a little frozen. No worries, Hudson. John is merely conversing. I put my phone down on the table and said, you bring up Ashton and Pierce, which is amusing. In fact, I am somewhat associated with that company. The room's temperature significantly decreased. Really? Now, Chloe's voice was cautious. Yes. You see, my company was looking to rebrand around 6 months ago. We required a marketing company with expertise in B2B logistics consultancy. We sent out calls for proposals to a number of local agencies. I grabbed my phone and accessed my email. Among them were Ashton and Pierce. Even though we ultimately chose a different firm, I still retain all of the correspondence. James's eyes narrowed as he observed me. Margaret was no longer eating. As I mentioned while going through my emails, I learned a lot about Ashton and Pierce, their organization, their clientele, and their team members. Chloe was really pale now. I went on, I'm currently looking at their client list. You know what's intriguing? Most of the well-known names you listed are regional companies. A dentist office, a few local restaurant brands, and a few tiny shops. Of course, there is nothing wrong with that. Smaller clients must be handled by someone. Chloe blurted out, I never said they were Fortune 500 companies. No, but it was inferred by you. You mentioned well-known brands. You gave it a really great sound. I turned to face Hudson. Additionally, the account manager role she mentioned is also not quite correct. You see, one of my friends is employed at Ashton and Pierce, Luke Anderson. He works there as a creative director. I displayed my text conversation with Luke to the table. Just now, when Chloe was speaking, I contacted him to ask if anyone called Chloe Walker was employed there. There was complete quiet. He claims that, although they do have a Chloe Walker, she is not a senior marketing associate. She works as a junior coordinator, entry-level role. She schedules meetings, takes phone calls, and occasionally assists with the preparation of presentation materials. Chloe's face was now hot crimson instead of pale. I went on. No account manager position is being considered. Major clients are not handled by any team. She is in charge of ordering lunch for meetings and making copies. John, Riley began. Hold on, I'm not done. I turned to face Chloe. You have been making fun of my family, my business, and my background for the past 25 minutes. You referred to my business as a small enterprise. You suggested that I was just marginally superior to a middle manager. You described me as though I were a fortunate charity case. I turned my phone to the table and opened the webpage for my business. Williams Supply Solutions is this company. Last year, we made $9 million. We have 50 employees, 8 significant regional distributors, and 3 Fortune 500 corporations are among our clientele. We signed a contract with a big retail chain last month that will bring in $2.3 million in fees over the following 3 years. James, I looked at you and said, that's more than your best dealership makes in a year. His face turned a deep scarlet. I went on, and Chloe, you neglected to mention that you're barely making $45,000 a year, answering phones while you were sitting there making fun of my mother for working at a grocery store and my father for being a truck driver. My newest junior analyst earns more than that. I could hear the old clock in the hallway ticking away during the prolonged silence. When Chloe eventually answered, you don't know anything about me, her voice was trembling. Calmly, I know you're a liar, I answered. I am aware that you have spent the last hour sitting here making fun of someone who truly constructed something real while feigning to be someone you are not. And I am aware that everyone at this table felt superior to the Hartford child, so they were all more than glad to let you do it. Hudson got to his feet. You must not speak to her in such a manner. Hudson, have a seat. I'm currently speaking with your dad. I looked across at James. You said that I was disparaging your family. I should stop overreacting, you said. You did nothing as you sat there and let a stranger to disparage me, my parents, and all I've worked so hard to create. You joined in, which was worse than nothing. Margaret remarked icily, John, I think you should leave. I agree, but let me make something very plain first. I got up and glanced around the table. I've accepted your condescension for 9 years. I've accepted your insincere praise. I've accepted your jokes about my background, my automobile, and my attire. Every family meal where you made me feel like I should be thankful that you allowed me to sit at your table has made me smile. You've never stood up for me, and I glanced at Riley. Never once. Every time, you've sat there and allowed them to treat me as though I'm not important. As if I'm fortunate to be with you rather than the other way around. Riley said, "Please, John. I'm finished. I'm done acting like this is normal," I remarked plainly. I have had enough of being treated disrespectfully by those who have achieved less than I have but behave like kings and queens. And I'm particularly tired of hearing some inexperienced phone operator make fun of my family as you all nod and smile. Now Chloe was crying. Margaret was getting to her feet and appeared enraged. Anger had turned James's cheeks purple. I no longer cared that Hudson appeared to want to fight me. "You have a choice," I remarked to Riley. "You have two options. Either come with me now so we can create something better than this, or stay here with your family and let them continue to treat me like trash." Everybody was staring at her. Riley had mascara streaming down her cheeks as she sobbed. "You can't just," she began. "John, right now, Riley, yes or no?" It was a long moment. I saw my wife, whom I had made a life with and loved for 9 years, struggle with the most basic question in the world. Choose to support your spouse or the individuals who have been demeaning him for 9 years. "John, my family," she said. "That's my response," I replied. I left that house and that dining room without turning around. Not when I was yelled at by Margaret. Not after hearing Riley sob. Not when Hudson stormed the door, screaming that I had destroyed everything. I got into the nice BMW I had purchased with my own money and drove home to our apartment, which I had paid for and furnished with furnishings I had purchased from a building of my choosing. Luke Anderson at Ashton and Pierce texted me that evening. "What happened, dude? Chloe Walker recently lost her job. Her supervisor discovered that she had been lying to everyone, including her boyfriend and his family, about her job. It seems that your text revealed all." I didn't respond. I was sitting in my living room, sipping the pricey scotch that the Parkers had given me for Christmas 2 years prior. And I remembered when everyone had stopped smiling at that dinner table. The instant they came to the realization that they could no longer despise the Hartford kid. Around midnight, Riley returned home. She was crying, and her eyes were crimson. She took a seat across from me and was silent for a considerable amount of time. "You humiliated Chloe," she spoke at last. "Chloe made a fool of herself. You caused her to lose her job. Because she lied about her position and was discovered, she lost her employment. I'm not responsible for that." Riley gave a headshake. "You are viewed as a monster by my family. I'm seen as inferior by your family. They've always done so. The only thing that has changed is that I no longer pretend not to notice. My brother, they're my parents, John. I can't simply stop talking to them. I'm not asking you to stop talking to them. I'm pleading with you to defend me when they treat me like trash. For the first time in 9 years, I'm requesting your support." She remained silent for a considerable amount of time. I'm not sure if I can pull that off. I realized my marriage was over at that point. 3 weeks later, we parted ways. Riley temporarily returned to live with her parents. 3 months later, the divorce papers arrived. She sought spousal support, half of my business equity, and the apartment. I gave the apartment to her.